Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a place that's instantly recognizable and surprisingly misunderstood.
Yeah.
The City of London.
Mm.
You sent over some intriguing excerpts from its Wikipedia page.
Right.
Which tells me you're after more than just a double-decker bus tour, right?
Absolutely. It seems you're drawn to the hidden gears and levers of this historic square mile. And trust me, there are layers upon layers to uncover.
I have to admit, I always thought London and the City of London were interchangeable.
Yeah.
But it turns out they're
Yeah.
two distinct things. Can you shed some light on that?
It's a common misconception. Think of the city of London as a city within a city. It's ancient, founded by the Romans in 43 AD as Londinium, and it has fiercely guarded its unique identity ever since. While it sits at the heart of modern London, it operates almost like an independent state.
Wow, that's a curveball I wasn't expecting. It has its own governing body, the City of London Corporation, right? What's crazy to me is that this isn't just some honorary title.
Right.
This corporation actually holds real power, even today.
Precisely. The corporation exerts significant influence, managing its own budget, setting its own laws on certain matters, and even maintaining its own police force, separate from the Metropolitan Police. This raises fascinating questions about how the city interacts with Greater London. Sometimes it's a harmonious partnership, other times there are points of friction.
Two different police forces in one city. That sounds like a recipe for some interesting jurisdictional disputes, to say the least.
It certainly adds a layer of complexity, When we talk about power, we can't ignore the obvious. Your Wikipedia excerpt highlighted the incredible concentration of businesses within the city. It's more than just a financial district, it's a global powerhouse.
The sheer density of it all is mind-boggling. You have over 500,000 people crammed into this square mile every workday.
Right.
A sea of suits navigating a labyrinth of skyscrapers.
And those skyscrapers aren't just impressive architecture, they represent the immense financial weight the city carries. Major banks, insurance giants, legal firms, their decisions within those glass and steel towers can reverberate across global markets, even sparking international trends. It's a stark reminder that what happens in this one square mile can impact all of us, regardless of where we live.
That's a pretty sobering thought. I'm picturing those bustling streets, the endless stream of taxis and briefcases, and realizing there's this whole other level of activity happening that most people never even see.
It's a world unto itself, fueled by complex algorithms, high-stakes negotiations, and fortunes made and lost in the blink of an eye. But what's remarkable is that amidst this whirlwind of modern finance, the city clings fiercely to its traditions, almost like a point of pride.
That's what I find so fascinating. It's like stepping back in time. Case in point, the Lord Mayor, I read that they have this incredible ceremony every year, the Lord Mayor Show,
Right.
where they parade through the streets in a gilded coach.
Yeah.
Sounds like something out of a fairy tale.
It's quite the spectacle, a tradition dating back centuries. The newly elected Lord Mayor, adorned in velvet and ermine, travels in a grand procession, upholding a custom that has survived wars, fires, and even the invention of the internet. It's as if the city is saying, yes, we're a global financial center, but we haven't forgotten our roots.
It's a fascinating juxtaposition, this blend of old and new. And it's not just the Lord Mayor. You've got historic landmarks like St. Paul's Cathedral, ancient pubs with tales to tell, all nestled amongst these gleaming skyscrapers. It's almost like a living museum, where you can also grab a latte and check your stock portfolio on your phone.
That's a great way to put it. And here's another detail from your Wikipedia excerpt that I found quite striking. Only around 9,000 people actually reside within the city limits.
Wait, seriously? Only 9,000 residents? But over 500,000 people work there daily.
Exactly. This creates a truly unique dynamic. During the day, it's a frenetic hub of global commerce. But as the sun sets and those commuters head home, the city transforms into an almost eerie, deserted landscape. Can you imagine having those historic streets practically to yourself each evening?
That's wild. It's like having a front row seat to history every night. It really makes you wonder about the human side of this financial giant, the people who call this unusual place home. But beyond the residents, I'm curious about the impact of all this concentrated wealth and power on a larger scale.
That's a question that goes beyond balance sheets and economic indicators. It delves into the very soul of the city. How does this concentration of wealth shape social dynamics, both within the city and in the surrounding areas of London?
It's easy to get caught up in the grandeur of it all. But there's a whole other layer here about social equity, access, and the potential for a disconnect between this financial powerhouse and the everyday lives of Londoners.
Precisely. And that's where things get even more intriguing. We've touched on the city's unique governance structure, its separate police force, but there are even more traditions that raise eyebrows in a modern context, like the freedom of the city.
You're right. The freedom of the city, it sounds almost medieval. You'd think in this day and age, access to work and opportunity wouldn't be restricted by such archaic concepts.
Well, you're not wrong to question its relevance. This tradition has its roots in medieval times, granting special privileges to certain individuals, allowing them to trade freely within the city walls.
So those granted freedom were essentially given the keys to the kingdom back then, at least when it came to commerce and trade. But what does that even mean in the 21st century? Surely it's not still a thing.
That's where it gets interesting. While many of the original privileges are now obsolete, thankfully, sheep driving rights aside, the freedom of the city persists, albeit largely as a symbolic honor.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say sheep driving rights?
I did. To this day, those granted the freedom of the city technically retain the right to herd sheep across London Bridge. It's a bizarre, somewhat humorous relic of a bygone era.
Okay, now I have to hear more about these sheep driving rights. But first,
Yeah.
let's get back to the bigger picture of the freedom of the city. Today, it's more about recognizing individuals for their contributions, right?
It is.
But does this practice, even in its symbolic form, create any unintended consequences?
It's a valid question. While intended as an honor, some argue that it perpetuates an exclusive system, potentially disadvantaging those who don't fit the traditional mold. It begs the question, can a tradition rooted in such a different time truly be inclusive in a modern, diverse society?
It's a bit like those grand old universities that still have traditions steeped in privilege.
Right.
Fascinating to learn about, but you wonder about their place in a world striving for greater equality.
It's a tension the city navigates, constantly honoring its storied past while grappling with the realities of the 21st century. But speaking of the past, it's impossible to ignore the indelible mark left by the Romans. Your Wikipedia excerpt mentioned Londinium, the seed from which the city sprouted. What intrigues me is how this Roman legacy is woven into the very fabric of the city, even after all these centuries.
It's amazing to think that we're talking about events from almost 2,000 years ago,
Right.
yet their impact is still visible today. The city's boundaries, for instance. They
Yeah.
largely follow the lines of the old Roman walls, right?
Exactly. Fragments of those ancient fortifications still stand, a tangible link to Londinium's past as a bustling Roman outpost. Imagine the stories those stones could tell, legions marching, merchants hawking their wares, the clamor of a civilization on the rise. And it's not just the walls, street names, archaeological sites, even the layout of the city. They all whisper tales of Roman influence.
It's like walking through a history book, except the pages are made of stone and concrete. It makes you realize that beneath the modern facade of the city lies this hidden world just waiting to be unearthed. Speaking of hidden layers, the Wikipedia article mentioned the Temple Church, which apparently survived the Great Fire of London. I have to admit I'm a bit embarrassed to say I haven't visited yet.
It's a true gem. Picture this. A 12th century masterpiece of Norman architecture, built by the Knights Templar, no less. The Temple Church is a testament in the city's ability to endure, even in the face of devastating events like the Great Fire. While much of London was reduced to ashes, the Temple Church stood defiant, a symbol of resilience amidst the chaos.
It's incredible to think that something built so long ago could withstand such destruction. To walk through those doors must be like stepping back in time, surrounded by the echoes of history. I'm adding it to my to-do list as we speak. Are there other landmarks within the city that also survived the fire?
Sadly, not many. The Great Fire was incredibly destructive, consuming a significant portion of the city. The monument, that towering column we see today, serves as a stark reminder of the fire's devastation. It was strategically placed near where the inferno began, a solemn beacon commemorating the lost city. But even in the face of such catastrophe, London rebuilt, its spirit unbroken. It speaks to a certain tenacity that seems ingrained in the city's DNA.
It's a testament to the human spirit. Our ability to rebuild and adapt even after unimaginable loss. Exploring the city like this, peeling back the layers of its history, makes those financial markets we talked about earlier seem almost ephemeral.
It's a perspective shift, isn't it? The city's financial prowess is undeniable, but it's just one chapter in a much longer story, one that stretches back millennia. And who knows what tales the future holds? Imagine archaeologists, centuries from now, unearthing the remnants of our modern metropolis. What will they make of our glass and steel towers, our digital footprints, our sheep-driving traditions?
That's a fascinating thought. Speaking of our modern metropolis, we've talked about the city's density, how over 500,000 people converge on this tiny patch of land every day. That kind of influx requires a serious transportation network. And your Wikipedia excerpt touched on the city's incredible underground system.
The London Underground is practically its own city beneath the city. For the City of London, it's a lifeline. You have stations like Bank, Monument, Liverpool Street, major hubs connecting different lines, ferrying people in and out with almost clockwork precision. And let's not forget the Docklands Light Railway, or DLR, which plays a vital role in connecting the city to the redeveloped Docklands area, itself a burgeoning financial hub.
It's like a giant interconnected web shuttling people between meetings, deadlines, and power lunches. Do you think that's part of what makes the city so successful, this ability to move people and information so efficiently?
Absolutely. The city's transportation network is its circulatory system, keeping the heart of this financial giant pumping. Without it, the city simply couldn't function at the scale it does. The sheer density of underground stations is astounding, meaning you're never more than a short walk from hopping on a train and zipping across the city or even to the far corners of London.
It's a far cry from the days of horse-drawn carriages and cobblestone streets. Imagine trying to navigate those narrow, winding lanes during rush hour. It makes you appreciate how far we've come in terms of urban planning and infrastructure.
The city's evolution is a testament to our ability to adapt and innovate. And it's not just about speed and efficiency either. The underground has become an iconic part of London's identity. Those red, white, and blue roundels are instantly recognizable around the world.
They're as much a symbol of London as Big Ben or Buckingham Palace. But getting back to the city specifically, the Wikipedia article highlighted that it boasts one of the highest densities of underground stations in the world. What does that actually look like on the ground for someone navigating those bustling streets?
Imagine emerging from your office building after a long day. And within a few minutes' walk, you're presented with a choice, multiple underground stations, each whisking you away on a different line to a different corner of the city. This intricate web of tunnels and stations allows for remarkable connectivity, making even the most distant parts of London feel easily accessible.
It's like having a secret network of tunnels beneath a city, ready to whisk you away to your destination. I never thought about it that way. It makes you wonder what those early city planners would think of the system they set in motion.
It's a far cry from the London Underground's humble beginnings in the 19th century, that's for sure. It's a testament to how infrastructure shapes a city, evolves with it. And as we've seen throughout our deep dive, the City of London is a fascinating blend of those historical layers and modern advancements. But it also begs the question, what will future generations unearth about our time? What will remain of this bustling financial hub once the skyscrapers lose their gleam?
It's a bit of a mind-bending thought. Will they find remnants of our trading floors, our digital data streams, fossilized Pret-a-Manger croissants? It makes you realize that we're not just inhabiting the city, we're contributing to its ever-evolving story. Speaking of stories, there's one more spot from the Wikipedia article I wanted to touch on: the Barbican estate. I've always been a bit intimidated by its brutalist architecture. Those concrete towers and elevated walkways have a very distinct, somewhat imposing presence.
The Barbican certainly makes a statement. Brutalist architecture, with its raw, concrete, and geometric forms, tends to evoke strong reactions. You either love it or hate it. But love it or hate it, the Barbican represents a fascinating moment in architectural history. A time when there was a lot of optimism about urban renewal and the creation of utopian communities within bustling cities.
So it's like a concrete time capsule of 1960s and 70s idealism.
In a way, yes. The Barbican was conceived as a self-contained community, a city within a city, if you will. It combined residential housing with cultural venues, green spaces, even a school, all designed to foster a sense of community and make urban living more livable.
It sounds like a fascinating social experiment, but I've also heard it's become incredibly expensive to live there. Has that impacted its original utopian vision?
It's a valid point. The Barbican, despite its stark exterior, has become a highly sought-after address, attracting a more affluent demographic. It raises questions about the balance between preserving architectural heritage and ensuring diverse, inclusive communities. It's the debate playing out not just in the Barbican, but in cities around the world.
It's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned plans can have unintended consequences as cities evolve. It's something to think about as we consider the legacy we're creating, both in the city and beyond. But for now, I think we've journeyed far enough for one deep dive.
Indeed. We've explored the city's ancient origins, its financial clout, its quirky traditions, and even its subterranean secrets. It's a place of endless fascination, that's for sure.
It's been an incredible journey. From Roman walls to sheep driving rights, the City of London never fails to surprise. And I have a feeling this isn't our last deep dive into this extraordinary square mile. Until next time, Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.